Hi. Masquerades, masks, death, life, poetry, reading. There is so much that we can do with it. Not only does confidence play a part in reading, especially in a foreign language, there's so much that we can do, so much that we can learn from this, and so much more. So there's so many ways in which we can improve ourselves in a foreign language through reading. In this part two of the Masquerade, the reading Masquerade, I want to finish the Mask of the Red Death the story that we were reading before by Edgar Allan Poe. And I want to take a look at a few aspects that maybe we talked a little bit in the last video, but now they will be resolved. Before we do that, we'll take a look at everything that we did, a small review. We'll look at the vocabulary, and then we'll go straight into the reading. Are you excited? 'Cause I know I am. Let's go. So, masquerade, like we said, a masquerade is a big and very important word in English. It's a word that can mean so many different things. In the sense of this story, it is a sort of ball. It is a sort of dance, a celebration where everyone is wearing a mask to hide their identity, to hide who they are. We talked about different ways that in the last class, we talked about different ways that masquerades can be used in English. First of all, it's a way of hiding, like we said, to hide your identity. It makes things more mysterious, more adventurous. Things are unknown, which is also another point that I'd like to add on to here. When we talk about the unknown, what are we talking about? We talk about the unknown in a masquerade ball, we can say. We can just say masquerade as well. What is unknown? Unknown. First of all, I want to ask one of my favorite questions to ask in a language class is how can we separate the word unknown? What parts do we have here? Well, first of all, we have not now, we'll put this here. We have the part un, we have the part no, and then we have the n, the n. We can divide it into three separate parts. We can also keep this part together, we can also keep this last part together if you'd like. It's okay. It's okay. So, what do we have here? Un, as we all know, what does this mean? Not. Not's the opposite, just the idea of not. No, something that we can understand. And n turns it into an adjective or past participle. So here we have something that is unknown. And this may not be a very difficult word for any of you. It may be a word that almost all of you know. It's a good thing. But what is this idea? What is this concept of something unknown in a masquerade? If we remember in the story, and I can bring the story over here as well. If we remember in the story, this idea of these people were safe. We'll get back into this as well. These people were safe and they felt comforted in a place full of people that they knew. They were all the same. They were all the same social class. They were all the same. This maybe the same family, maybe friends. They all had uh, the same background, the same economy, the same resources, the same connections. Everything was the same. So that for them, things were not unknown. Instead, things and people were familiar. Despite that, despite that, the masquerade covered them. And not only the masquerade, but there's something else that we can add to it. It was also dark. And so we have this idea that it was dark, it was hard to see. And But dark here. It's dark. In each of the rooms that they had, each room was a different color. And in each of the rooms, they had a sort of pane window, a stained glass window that blocked the light coming in, or at least changed the light coming in, changed the color or the hue of the light coming in to make the room look a different color. Even though all the rooms were similar colors, the light coming in changed the room, which also added to this idea of things being unknown, or we can even say to make it the opposite of familiar. We can say things, the situation, the people, wearing masks became unfamiliar. We couldn't tell. They couldn't tell exactly who they were dancing with, who was beside them. It's this mystery behind it. That's one of the key things that we're going to talk about today. And we'll come back to this idea of unknown. We'll come back to this. But to get back into our review for today, like we said, there were a masquerade, global masquerade, this idea of a masquerade, general masquerade. You can choose who you want to be based on the mask that you put on. If you're wearing this gas mask to a masquerade, I really applaud you because that's pretty cool. But I mean, you can become whoever you want to be in a masquerade. I think it's pretty cool. So we talked a little bit about masquerades, how masquerades give you this temporary clean slate, this temporary tabula rasa, excuse me, rasa. The idea of a clean slate, a fresh start, a new beginning. Doesn't make much sense, but a new beginning. It's the idea that here you have a sort of chalkboard, a sort of slate. You wipe it off, and it's a clean slate. I have, for example, I gotta be careful which one I use. I have all of my decorations here. For example, oh, you can't really see it too well, but this is not the clean slate because it has photos on it. But if I were to, it would become a clean slate. It would become a clean slate. And this way I can draw something new. I can start fresh. I can have a new beginning on this slate, on this board. So we have all these things that we can look at. I want to take a few of these words. We also have the word symbolizes, for example. What does death symbolize? What do the colors symbolize? What does the color red symbolize, represent? So I want to take a look at this vocabularies. If you have responded to these questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm excited to to see what you say, so we can talk a little bit more about it. We can go further in depth with it. The vocabulary I want to look at for today, one of the biggest ones is going to be symbolize. Symbolize. What does that symbolize? We will not per se be learning any new learning methodologies, but we will be looking at a lot of the vocabulary that we used in past lessons. So a bit of vocabulary review and cognitivism here. So I'd like to go back and use tabula rasa, conceal, and and decorative. Decorative, yeah, decorative, conceal. We can also use mysterious, conceal, and tabula rasa. So decorative, conceal, tabula rasa. There we go. So what I want you to do now is to pause the video, take a second, time out, pause the video, use these cool words and answer, if you haven't already, answer one of these questions. This being the most important one for sure. Spoiler. No, but answer one of these questions if you haven't already. If these questions are not interesting for you, if maybe oh gosh, I'm not really in the mood to answer these questions, think about something different. You can say, for example, symbolize decorative concealed tabular also. You can also imagine you are one of the special VIP guests at the masquerade. Masquerade. There we go. Masquerade. How do what happens when you arrive at the ball, the masquerade? What happens when you arrive at the masquerade? Um, how do the people treat you? How do you feel in this environment? So this is one of your questions. Take a few seconds. You can answer one of these questions or one of these questions, but the goal is to use all four of these words in your in your story. Okay. Make it very short, yeah, not too long. Maybe three, four, five, six sentences maximum, not too long. Just enough to be able to use the words and go crazy with it, yeah. Go as far as you want to with this. Okay. So I will continue. I imagine you've already paused the video, so I will continue. Imagine you are one of the special VIP guests at the masquerade. What happens when you arrive at the ball? Okay. How do people treat you? All right, so listen, I'm a little bit wild. I'm a little bit wild. So we're going to imagine the craziest thing that's ever happened in the history of a masquerade, okay? I decide to dress up as Ronald McDonald. If you don't know who Ronald McDonald is, I can show you a quick picture. Yeah, let me bring this back over here so you can see this. Ronald McDonald is excuse me, McDonald. Ronald McDonald is the character from the main person. Imagine from the McDonald's company. So I decide to get dressed up. This is strange for a masquerade, but hey, like I said, you go as wild as you want. The wilder, the better the story. I decide to dress up as Ronald McDonald because for me, Ronald symbolizes the how can we say this? Ronald symbolizes the excitement. Oh, excuse me. The excitement that people might have for a masquerade ball. He symbolizes the excitement. He is always smiling. Although he's always smiling, although perhaps that smile conceals a hidden, um, we can say a secret past. Ooh, conceals a secret past. Um, Albeit, we'll get back into this vocabulary in a second. A decorative war veteran. Maybe not decorative, that's probably not the best word here. A decorative, albeit um, a person from I guess a character who lives, who we'll figure about this. We'll figure about. So we'll keep going with this. What happens when you're a well, yeah, because the masquerade. Um, Taking a second here. I'm also going to see if I'm actually showing on my screen. Here, it's good. Although perhaps that smile conceals a secret past. So I arrive at the ball, a decorative, how do we say it? Decorative, what is your, and okay. I arrive at the ball, a decorative venue filled with masked strangers that flood the rooms, flood the colorful rooms with laughter, smiles, and hmm, and mystery. The people, however, uh, hmm, what is best about the experience is that people never uncover, we can even say discover, my true identity. I, it's a ta it the the ball, the masquerade is a tabula rasa where I am free or freed from my secret past. So mysterious. I love it. All right. So I wrote a lot because apparently today I am very motivated. I decided to dress up as Ronald McDonald because for me, in my opinion, Ronald symbolizes, we have this word symbolize, symbolizes the excitement that people might have for a masquerade ball. He's always smiling, although perhaps that smile conceals a secret past. I want to take this away. I want to make this a little bit. He's always smiling, although perhaps the smile conceals a secret past. I arrive at the ball being, it's a little bit easier for you all to see. Let's change it to light pink. Okay. I arrive at the ball, a decorative venue filled with masked strangers. What is a stranger? Stranger, 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 stranger danger. Stranger is a person that you do not know. You don't know this person, stranger. That flood the colorful rooms. It's not just a small, a few people coming. It is a flood. Oh, I don't know what is up. Excuse me. Flood. A flood is this. It is large, a large mass of water that comes in. The image is this, all this water coming in, all this water coming in. What's the connection here? These strangers, that all these strangers are coming in. There are all these strangers, and they flood the room. They fill the room. I can put that here. They fill the room with oh, laughter. Laughter is coming. Laughter. There's so much noise. Smiles are everywhere. They're filling the room. They're filling the room. And mystery is everywhere, all over the room, just like the water in a flood. It is everywhere. Smiles, laughter, mystery. They're everywhere like water in a flood. That's the idea we have. They flood the place. What is best about the experience is that people never uncover. This is more the word we'll use is uncover my true identity. The idea is discover, but uncover here. The ball is a tabula rasa, where I was a prisoner, but now I am freed from my secret past. Ooh, so mysterious. How did you do? If you have any questions, if you want to post your story, go ahead and post it down below. And what we'll do, because I want to focus more on the story because we've gotten pretty far in this, is we'll get straight into the story where we will learn about what happened next. So getting back into the story, this is where we left off. It produced so wild a look. The black that we're talking about the black room. Mhm. All the rooms were lit through the outside windows. The resulting light was strange indeed, as it colored the shapes of the dancers. But the light that fell on the black hangings, the blood-colored glass, was the most fearful of them all. It produced so wild a look on the faces of those who entered that there were few of the dancers who dared to step within those dark walls. Okay, that sets the scene, huh? Dark, dared, blood-colored glass. We have the image, that representation of blood in the color red again. Fearful, wild looks, black hangings. I mean, it just mystery is flooding this class. It is everywhere. So let's continue. Now, before we continue, I do want to remind you of our process for this. We're going to be doing shadow reading, okay? While I'm reading, what I want you to do is you can turn my volume down a little bit. Listen, of course, but turn my volume down and read out loud while I'm reading. Try to mimic the way that I am reading. After you do that, pause the video, maybe every two, three paragraphs, or every paragraph if you want. Pause the video, read by yourself, and then restart the video again and read with me. See how it changes. See how your flow changes when you read. We're working a little bit on fluidity, we're working on intonation, and we're working on expression with the voice, okay? Last time I was a little bit slower with the reading. This time I will be a little bit more real. Okay, a little bit more. I will be real with the reading. We'll stop every paragraph or so to talk a little bit about it, to focus on big words, focus on key expressions. But the idea here is to focus on shadow reading. So let's get into it. In this room stood a great clock of black wood. Gently, it marks the seconds as they passed. And when it was time to mark the hour, the clock spoke with a loud, clear voice, a deep tone as beautiful as music, but so strange that the music and the dancing stopped, and the dancers stood still to listen. And then, after another 60 minutes, after another 3,600 seconds of time, of flying time, the clock struck again, and the dancers stopped as before. Nevertheless, it was a happy and beautiful masquerade, and you may be sure that the clothes the dancers chose to wear, their costumes, were strange and wonderful. The dancers looked like the forms we might see in troubled dreams, and these dreams danced softly through the rooms, taking the color of the rooms as they moved. It did not seem that their steps followed the music, but that the music rose from their steps. But into the seventh room, the dancers do not go. For the red light coming through the windows and the blackness of the wall hangings make them afraid. And he who enters hears more deeply the striking of the great black clock. Pause. Wow, what amazing sentences here. First of all, they're so simple, some of these sentences, but they use such simple words, but they really pack a punch. And that's a word I want to talk about here. I want to see if I can put perfect. I can put some text. Excellent. The sentence is pack a punch. Pack a punch. So they're not just, small sentences. They don't just, you know, make you say, ah, that's really nice. They really, boom, they're really powerful, powerful. They pack a punch. We can say, another thing we can say pretty often is, for example, that alcohol. Let's say you're drinking with friends. You can say, you drink a small bit of alcohol. You say, oh my gosh. That alcohol packed a punch. It was intense. It was strong. Packed a punch. Let's say that you are, let's say we can change it to something a little bit more, a little bit realer, and that is imagine that you and your best friend had a big, big, big fight. And after the big fight, you didn't speak to each other. This is your friend, and you're not speaking to each other. The fight was so intense, it packed a punch right to your heart. Right to your heart. So dramatic. Welcome to me. I am what we call a hopeless romantic, even when it comes to friendships. So hopeless romantic. But the fight really packed a punch to our really packed a punch on our friendship. Yeah, for our friendship. Packed a punch against our friendship, on our friendship, to our friendship, to our friendship. Punch to our friendship. Friendship against our friendship. I'd say against our friendship. Yeah, we packed a punch against our friendship. The fight really packed a punch against our friendship. Yeah. So you have lots of different meanings here that we can use. I will put this up. Okay, well we can't take that back. Okay, well there you go. There we have a few sentences here. I'll also take a small screenshot so this way all of you can have this in your let's put this here. All of you can have it um in your OneNote. So I'll go ahead and put this here. There we go. So you have all that. Really packed a punch, to pack a punch. These sentences really packed a punch. And my question to you is why? What made these sentences pack a punch? There's lots of things that we can talk about here. I'll clean all my drawings. There we go. We can talk about a lot of things here, but we want to talk. What I really want to focus on is the fact that is the differences between each of the paragraphs. We go between different rooms. Here we talk a lot about the black room, the room with blood-colored glass. You see that each room, we have the image of what color the room is, but most of the rooms are described by the color of the glass. And not really not always the color of the room itself. Blood-colored glass. Already, we imagine a glass with that looks like blood. I don't know about you, but I would avoid that too, yeah. I would avoid that too. That's not my kind of room. And here we have this idea of a great clock of black wood. A clock that tick, 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 tick. Apparently each second was very gentle. It was not a very loud sound. It was not a very intense boom. It was just small marks. That's it. But as soon as we got to the hour, that's when there was a loud, clear, deep, musical tone. Musical, but also a bit strange as it resonated. As it resonated, I'll put this word here, using my typing tool. There we go. It resonated. It resonated throughout the different rooms. Major clock. We keep going. We talked a little bit about time. There's a big question, I know some of you may be German speakers, and I know there are some languages as well where we capitalize some nouns. Capitalizing nouns like time is not normal. So, if we do capitalize things like time, it's important. It is extremely important. We only do this in stories, okay? Stories and poetry for sure. Stories and poetry. Why would we capitalize time? There are a few reasons, you know. Number one, we could be talking about a name. Could be a name, of course. This we already know. Yep. We already know in English we excuse me, that might be a word you don't know. Capitalize equals to make a big letter. So instead of B, you write B. Oh, small b, you write big B. Capitalize. And the small one is called up. Put this here. We have lowercase and uppercase. Uppercase. There we go. Lowercase and uppercase. There we go. It's turning the low thing, the small one into the big one to capitalize, capital letter. So it can be the name, it could be the name of something, time. It could be the general idea of time. I hear the general idea of time. So for example, time is in this sense so important that we're talking about something time, but something else beyond that, you know? It's not just time in the sense of, oh, it's a clock, oh, very cool, but I don't want to spoil anything, but it could represent something bigger. And that's normally when we're talking about that. For example, we have the idea of I like to walk in in this case I'm just gonna switch back over to the so we don't waste time doing this. I'm just gonna switch back over to this. For example, I like walking in nature. Oh, nature. Here, normal sentence. Normal sentence. Mother Nature is a beautiful addition to this world. Here, why are the letters capital? Why are they uppercase? Because here, Mother Nature is a name. It's also the the big idea, the general idea of something. We'll get more into that in a second. Um, what is greater than hmm, it is a representation of here it's a name. It can also be a representation of all nature. That may not make much sense for now, but we'll get back into that in a second. Get back into that in a second. So let's go back. Let's take a look at the time here. So time in this instance, we're talking about something that is very important to this story. So already we'll get into the things, we'll talk about the things that we know for the story that are very important. Important things for this story are number one, colors. We've already seen that the colors are very important. They stress the colors, especially the color red. They really stress that. The next thing we have is time. It's very, very, very important. These are two very, very important things here. And we'll see if you can find anything else. As we go down, we see that there's a big difference between the beautiful, musical, resounding clock, resounding clock. And then we have this idea of nevertheless. Nevertheless. When do we use this? The dancers stopped as before. Strange. Here we have two instances of strange, not so comfortable, maybe unknown, maybe mysterious, unfamiliar, and then nevertheless happy, beautiful, wonderful, positive words. We have the contradiction, a contradiction between strange, unfamiliar, weird, not weird, that's not the word they use, but um unfamiliar, unknown, this kind of feeling. It's now beautiful, happy, wonderful. Nevertheless, despite that, it was a happy and beautiful masquerade. So we can use that as well. I'll put this here. Nevertheless, despite that, despite that. Okay. I'll take a little screenshot here for all of you. And I'll put this back into the, yep. I'll put this back into the, oh, no, stop. Into the OneNote. Oof. I'll change this. I'll change this a little bit before we before I give this to you. So we have all this. Excellent. We go back to this one. All right. So I'll go ahead and clear my screen, clear all drawings, and we'll get into this. They talked a little bit about dreams. Question for you. Why did the characters, why did none of the costumes, none of the dancers ever go into the seventh room? You can think about it. Even if you have any ideas, words that help you to understand. Red light coming through the windows, the blackness of the wall hangings, the word afraid hears more deeply than the striking of the great black clock. So the clock is actually closer. We can insinuate, we can understand the clock is closer to the seventh room. And the booms are more intense in the seventh room. The time is more boom, boom, more powerful, more resounding in this seventh blood-stained room, blood-stained glass room. Ooh, dark. But the other rooms are crowded, and in them beats hotly the heart of life, the heart of the party. And the dance goes on until at last the clock begins to strike 12 midnight. Again, the music stopped. Again, the dancers stood without moving while the slow striking sound continued. Before the clock was quiet again, many in the crowd saw that in the first room, the blue room, there was a masquerader who had not been seen before. Masquerader, very simple. We have this ER. Here we're talking about the person who's at a masquerade, a masquerader. As they talked softly to each other about him, a feeling of surprise spread through all the dancers, then a feeling of fear and of sickening horror. So not they don't feel sickening, but it's horror that makes them not feel comfortable. It's very, very, very uncomfortable, very scared, very in such a group as this, only a very strange masquerader could have caused such a feeling. Even among those who laugh at both life and death, some matters cannot be laughed at. Everyone seemed now deeply to feel that the stranger should not have been allowed to come among them dressed in such clothes. He was tall and very thin, and covered from head to foot like a dead man prepared for the grave. The mask which covered his face, was it really a mask? The mask which covered his face was so much like the face of a dead man that the nearest eye could not see the difference. And yet, all of this might have been acceptable, but the masquerader, whom nobody knew, had made himself looked like the Red Death himself, itself. His clothes were spotted with blood, and the mask over his face was covered with terrible red spots. Or perhaps it was indeed his face. When Prospero looked upon this fearful form, he was first filled with terror, then with anger. Who dares take him? Seize him! Seize him! Seize him! Pull off his mask so that we may know whom we must hang at sunrise. Ooh, getting getting a bit getting a bit dramatic here. Prospero stood in the blue room when he spoke these words. They sounded that we could even say resounded, resounded, resounded through the seven rooms loud and clear. At first, as he spoke, some of the dancers started to rush toward the strange masquerader, but they stopped, afraid, and no one dared to put out a hand to touch him. The stranger started to walk toward the second room. He passed within a few feet of Prospero, who stood still, surprised. And while the dancers moved back from the center of the room, the stranger moved quietly, without being stopped, with a slow, measured step through the blue room to the purple room, through the purple room to the green, to the yellow, to the white, and then to the violet room. Here we go back to the rooms are now being colored. We're not talking about the glass anymore, because it's more important now what happens in the rooms. We're talking about what happens in the rooms now. As the stranger was entering the seventh room, Prospero suddenly and angrily rushed through the sixth room. No one dared to follow him. He held a sharp knife high over his head, ready to strike the stranger. When he was within 3 or 4 feet of the strange masquerader, the stranger turned and stood silent, looking firmly into Prospero's eyes. There was a cry, and the knife dropped, shining upon the black floor, upon which, a minute later, Prospero himself fell, dead. The dancers then rushed into the black room. The strongest of the men tried to hold the masquerader, whose tall form stood beside the black clock. The masquerader stood beside the black clock. But when they put their hands on him, they found inside the grave clothes no human form, no body, nothing. Now they know. Now they knew it was the Red Death itself that had come in that night. One by one, the dancers fell, and each died as he fell. And the fires died. The clock stopped. And darkness and decay and the Red Death ruled forever over all. So, question for you. Was this a happy ending? And not the happiest of endings, it depends on whose side you are thinking of. It's I don't know if this was, I'm wondering if this was a predictable. Was this ending predictable? Could you guess, using the word from our first class, could you guess what was what was going to happen at the end? Could you imagine before you knew? Could you imagine what was going to happen at the end? Curious. So we have a lot of, I'll put these two words in the book later. I'll write these down to put them into the predictable and guess at end. Okay. So we have a lot that happened here. What I want to do, and I want to take a second here. We'll take a look about this. We'll take a look at this real quick. Um, was was the ending predictable? I did the same thing. Predictable. And oh no, that's not what I want. Up. Was the ending predictable? Number one, and number two, could you guess what was going up to happen at the end? I guess we can add this to make it a little bit easier. While reading, could you guess what was going to happen at the end? I'm gonna put this in here. Excellent. So here's what I want to do. And this we will not do together. This is something that you can do for extra practice. I want to divide this into several sections. So what I'll do is I'll take this. I'll draw little little boxes for us. Was the ending predictable? While reading, could you guess what was going to happen? So here's a question I want you to answer. Here's a question I also want you to answer. And more than just you can more than yes. How did you know, for example? Let me get rid of this. How did you know? Or how did you know? Or what surprised you? How we can say if yes, how? If no, what surprised you? Okay. Next part, and this is perhaps the most important for now, summary. Okay. I want you to tell me everything that happened in the story in less than, let me talk about less than 20, you understand. In less than 20, we'll say 30. We'll give you some time. 30 words. Okay. Keep it short. I want a summary in less than 30 words. Okay. Something that can help you to write the story as well are keywords. Key topics from the story. Okay. So this is what I want you to do. This is your first task before we continue our discussion. Was the ending predictable? That's number one. While reading, could you guess what was going to happen at the end? If yes, how? If no, what surprised you? This can be two, or even it can even be four if you prefer two or four. I want this to be number three. Focus on the key topics from the story to help you create the summary in less than 30 words. Okay, this will be four. Okay, whatever comes forth, basically. We'll make this two or four, and then three or four, basically. So go ahead and work on that. Once you are done, I'm curious to know what you think. So go ahead and post your responses in the chat and either in the comments below, or you can send them directly to me. It's up as you want. I'd be excited to read them. Okay, perfect. So we can actually draw a little bit. We can actually talk a little bit about this, and then we'll stop for today. Was the ending predictable? Could you guess what's going to happen? This is up to you. Some key topics from the story we've already talked about. Already there was this idea of blood. There was this idea of time. This was the idea of mystery as well. That's one of the key words here. The idea of color, for example. And I think there was also this mystery figure. I'm curious to know what you think about the mystery figure. Like it's scary, huh? It's not something you would normally see in a well, definitely not a children's book, but it's a strange figure to see that. So clearly, obviously, there was no figure that appeared. There was no person that appeared. We can see that these people were having, at least this is my interpretation, these people were having hallucinations. They were hallucinating. They were hallucinating. They were seeing things. They were seeing things that weren't there. They were seeing things that weren't there. They were hallucinating. And I'll save this and put this in the other one as well. Oh, put this here. hallucinating. They were saying things that weren't there. Put this here. Up. That's one thing that's there. Okay, we keep going. There are a lot of questions I have for you, a lot of things that we can talk about. I want to focus as well on the vocabulary. So here's what I'll do. For next time, this will be the last of our class on the Red Death, on this story. But I want you to really focus on how you felt about this story, the key topics were, and what your summary would be. I'm not going to give you an example of a summary because I want to see what you can do yourself. I'm sure that you're going to do a great job. And even if it's more than 30 words, that's okay. That's okay. The goal is to keep it small. Keep it very short, okay? What you take the keywords you can and turn it into a summary. Okay? A summary is what happened in only 30 words. Good luck. My last question for you before we stop for today is this. Was it it's a castle, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Palace, excuse me. Was it a good idea to hide from the plague, to hide from the disease, the Red Death, basically? We can put it to hide from the plague or the Red Death in the palace. What do you think? Here you can here what you can do is you can draw on some ideas, some words, and some sentences that you have that we have in the story, and try to tell me what you think. Was it a good idea? If not, why not? If so, if you think it's a great idea, why do you think so? Reading, as we see, and I'll stop this for now. Reading, as we see, is a really, really, really fun adventure that allows us to take, all of the stress that we have maybe in our heads and to turn it into something that's creative, that's imaginative. So we're able to go further with our language learning through reading because we have new words, new ideas, new topics, and we even put this in these fake, false scenarios that allow us to learn more information, see more news, things like this, but also that allow us to close our eyes and imagine ourselves in a new place. You know, reading is exciting for learning new languages, and it's not scary. It doesn't have to be a scary thing. So, what I ask for you is to enjoy your reading. If you like this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you're interested. And before we stop for today, I just want to say thank you. And you're all doing a great job. Keep going with it. You're gonna be great. Take care.